Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
That's right. Here I am. I'm Dan. Welcome to Seahawks Forever. That's Bryce Coutts of the Hawks Eye, and we're just here to hang tonight. Might even make this a regular weekly thing. You know, during the week, we're all focused on injuries and roster moves and strategy and matchups and everything else. And then we're on the eve of the game. Maybe we'll just do these live hangs on Saturday night, just kind of take each other's temperature, see how we're feeling going into the game. And to help me do that is Bryce Coutts of the Hawks Eye. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Dan. I'm just here watching some college football on the right side for the University of Mary, which I know you're very fond of. As one of the kids that I've coached for years is starting as a true freshman receiver. So got to watch that on the side here and all the other college games going on at the same time as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's our competition right now, right? Is people watching college football. I'll tell you this, man, there's a lot of things that I'm discovering that I like about being on the East Coast, but start times, not one of those things. Waking up today and getting the notification on my phone at 9 a.m. that college game day was beginning blew my mind, and having to wait until noon for the first kickoff. And then tomorrow Seahawks kickoff is going to be 4:05 my time. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I'll live with it. You know, we just got to roll with the punches.
That's one thing. And speaking of rolling with the punches, I think that's something our Hawks are going to have to do on Sunday.
Yeah, right. So let's talk about the kind of the goal, the objective of tonight's show. We're going to keep it pretty casual and conversational. And I really do want to focus on the positive, like this says right here, right? Dare to dream, right? How ready are you? How good do we feel about this team? We always feel good about the opener. We talk ourselves into it, even during some off seasons when maybe we shouldn't, right? We're blinded by our own passion. But I want to begin with just some things that we might be worried or concerned about. And then we're going to flush that, sweep it under the carpet, and ignore all the negative comments. And we're just going to focus on the positive stuff, right? So let's start with this. Much has been made the last couple of days out of a report that came out on Twitter from Vivid Seats, one of the third-party ticket brokers, that said based on their analytics, which only they can only measure the tickets that they control and that they own. And there's so many other brokers out there, right? So who knows? I couldn't find. I did as deep a dive as you can do on the internet with every source that I could imagine, trying to figure out how many tickets, what percentage of the tickets in the stadium they control. Couldn't. It could be 1,000, right? But based on how their sales are going, they think, or they have said that 53% of the crowd on Sunday, up to 53% of the crowd could be 49er fans. I don't believe that. Do you believe that? And does it worry you at all?
I find it hard to believe that that's going to be the case just because of how hard it was to come by tickets. I was supposed to go down for the game this weekend, and with the exchange, the only tickets I could find were roughly nosebleeds up at the very top. And with the exchange for 2 tickets, it was almost $875 Canadian. And there was not a big selection. And every other time I've gone to a Hawks game, especially when I went to the Minnesota game last year and got tickets, like there was a good amount of tickets up for sale. And that usually to me is an indicative sign that, you know, people aren't going to the games. They're selling their tickets. There may be more, you know, I truly believe it is going to be rocking in Lumen on Sunday for this game. And I think there's what I'll say, Dan, is I think last year with Mike McDonald and the switch from Pete Carroll, I think there was a very bunch of hesitant fans about, is this going to work? Is it going to be for real? Am I better just to sell my tickets because I don't believe in what they've done? I think now we're running into those people that were doing that are going, no, like I believe in Mike McDonald. I believe in this vision that they're building here. And now I think you may see it come full fold this season where we start to get our home field advantage back.
Well, and that's why I have a hard time believing it too, because, and we talked about this when you came down to visit in training camp, we did those live shows. I went to both preseason games and it felt different. Like it just felt like there was a tangible excitement among the fan base that things are going to be a little different this year, to the point that even with preseason crowds, which, let's be honest, are you look around the stands at a given time and it's maybe 50 to 60% full. And yet they were clocking 110 decibels at their loudest. That tells me a little bit something, it tells me something. It's also this, again, Vivid can only measure the tickets that they have. And again, I also did a bunch of work trying to figure out historically, like how accurate their projections are based on their ticket sales. The diehard fans aren't selling their tickets to this game. And as you said, the ticket prices you see online are highly indicative of that, an opening game against an arch rival. But also this, I did find this information. Over the last several years, the 49ers are the second best traveling fan base, accounting for up to 45% of away games. I can't remember who's number one now because I wasn't focused on that. And surprisingly, the Seahawks were barely in the top 10, and we've seen how well we travel to other games. And where sometimes you're watching an away game. I remember the last time we played at Atlanta last year, even, where it sounded at times like a Seattle home game. And we've seen that before too. I just feel like that's being overblown. There are, for sure, are going to be a lot of 49er fans in the stands for a couple of reasons. A, they're motivated. It's a rivalry. People will pay. People will borrow money, or they'll do the zip payment or whatever it is so that they can stretch it out to get here. It's an easy trip. It's a cheaper plane ticket, or you can drive it if you want to drive 18 hours. Just as if the game was going to be in Santa Clara, you would see a ton of Seahawk fans traveling down to that game. That's just natural. That's going to happen. At the end of the day, what matters is how the team plays and what kind of product they put on the field. And I think it has a lot to do with how this offense performs, because if they can sustain drives, run the football, and get a lead, for sure, I think it changes things. And then if that defense can go out and get some stops early, because what I have said, and there's always been layers to this argument as we've talked about this issue over the last couple of years. And last year was, I think, the worst we've seen it. And the first place I usually would go to is, look, when other teams are putting 12 play drives together to open the game, getting leads, and we're having to play catch up, that's going to suck the life out of the crowd, because when does the crowd make themselves known the most? It's when the other team's on offense and they're breaking the huddle. But if you're down, like that Green Bay game is the best example. So much hype, night game, playoff race, division still to be played for. And they just ran it down our throats. The first 3 drives sucked all the life out of the crowd. That's how you make a difference. You're never going to get rid of all the opposing fans. You're never going to, especially in a rivalry. But what you do on the field can shut those fans up.
Well, and I was going to ask you, Dan, from your, perspective, you've been a Seahawks fan a lot longer than me. What was it like when the AFC West was a opponent, like in the Kingdom era, when you saw the Raiders and the Broncos and, the Chiefs and the Chargers and such? Like, what was that like as, fan base wise in those games? Did you see a lot of those teams travel and their fans?
Well, not nearly as much as now, but it was a different time then. There was no StubHub. There was no internet third-party ticket broker option. And so, to buy tickets in those games was more difficult, and it was very, very expensive. And it was also still new enough. And when the Seahawks got good for the first time in '83, that, there wasn't an Amazon. There wasn't an Expedia. There wasn't a Microsoft snapping up all those tickets that individual people either couldn't afford or wanted to give up after, like particularly in the 90s, when things were kind of rough to watch for a little while. So it was just a whole different time. It's just so much easier to get tickets now. There's so much more money involved, including in, the Bay Area. We're talking about Tech Central, right? Where a lot of the problem that we're seeing the last couple of years is because a lot of those tickets are owned by tech corporations up here. Well, we're talking about Silicon Valley. And so there's money to be had there. People will pay whatever they have to get to this game. It could be close to 50-50 or 60-40, with the 60 being the Seahawks fan base. But let's just stop acting like that's going to be the determining factor in what happens on the field, because I don't believe that it is.
Dan, it's just one of those things for me where I just don't want to see what we saw last year at any point this season, where we're hearing the other team's scold chant, and I'll use the Vikings as an example, echoing in Lumen. Like, that was really disheartening for me to sit there and listen. Like, we got our Seahawks chant going, and that was fine and dandy, but to hear skull being chanted at the end of the game like that, and it not being like just like, a couple, like, we're talking a good chunk of purple in there.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there going like, this is not what it's supposed to be like in Seattle when teams come here, that they should feel that comfortable.
To me, the worst game last year was Buffalo. It was, I think they were at least 50% of the fan base, but it was what happened on the field that allowed them to get into the game. And I think it all kind of, it's a big cycle, right? It's a vicious cycle where now opposing fans know that they can impact the game, that Lumen Field isn't an automatic loss for their teams anymore, which means they're going to be more willing to pay the freight to get on an airplane, get the tickets, come out, get a hotel room and all of that, because they know they actually have a chance to see their team win. When Lumen Field was almost impossible to win at, it sort of was a self-fulfilling prophecy where, hey, I'm not going to pay $1,500 to go see my team lose in Lumen. I can do that on TV for free and eat my own nachos. So I think just as that pendulum has swung that way, it can swing back the other way. And if they go out and go 6-2 at home this year, or 7-1, maybe next year some of those fans will think twice before they pay that out. Just wanted to show kind of some historical context of how the Seahawks have traditionally done. This is in home openers since 2013. I picked that year just because that was the World Championship year, right? They're 10-2 since then in home openers. That looks pretty good. But then last 4, they've split. It's 2-2. The last time that they faced the 49ers in a home opener was 2017. They won that game 12-9. It's amazing how shitty my memory's gotten. I remember nothing about that game, but maybe that's convenient since it doesn't seem like it was a very exciting one. And then this is versus the 49ers and how that pendulum certainly swung in the favor of the 49ers in the last several years, because it was utter domination from 2012 to 2021. The Seahawks 17-3 in the series. Since then, 1-6. But if there is a ray of hope, that one was the last game they played each other in November last year. So actually the Seahawks come into this game with a little bit of momentum, perhaps, in the series. Vegas, by the way, moved the line yesterday from 2.5, San Francisco being a 2.5-point favorite, down to 1 because of the Christian McCaffrey news. After everything you've heard the last couple of days, and Kyle Shanahan, not wanting to talk about it, and McCaffrey saying, everything's fine, and then people pulling up the quote from a year ago at the exact same time where he said everything's fine and it wasn't fine. What do you think we're going to see from CMC tomorrow?
I think you're going to see a managed snap count from CMC, to be brutally honest with you. I think they're going to run Robinson a little bit more than people maybe anticipated. We're talking about an injury to a player that is a shift speed changing running back. We're not talking about a power back. We're not talking about a guy that just goes north-south. We're talking about a guy that's very similar in a lot of ways to what Kenneth Walker does well. And when you get those lower limb injuries, it makes it hard because you aren't able to trust your cuts as much. You're not able to hit that next gear because you're not sure if it's going to pop and cause you more problems. So I think we're going to see a situation with CMC where he's going to be on the snap count and he may not be as effective as what we normally have come accustomed to and be the factor that he normally is. Him being there will still be a factor. Don't get me wrong. It's like that guy that you trot out there like Terrell Davis with Mike Shanahan against the Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl. Hey, we don't need you to see, but if you're not in there, they're not going to believe we're going to run the ball. Kind of that same mentality, like for Kyle Shanahan here, like we need CMC to be in there so they think we're going to do some things, but we may have to pivot and do other things.
Let's get to some news from today. We now know that Quentin Bohanna and Shaquille Griffin are going to be elevated from the practice squad for this game. I would expect them both to be active. Sometimes they do elevate guys and then decide not to activate them on game day. I've been saying all week to people that were worried about the defensive tackle situation that I think this was the plan all along with Bohanna. He was a vested veteran, so he didn't have to go through waivers. They knew that he wanted to be here and they could get him to the practice squad and that he would be a game day elevation so they could protect some other young guys. I think Connor O'Toole's probably a good example of that. He'll probably be inactive tomorrow, but they want to protect him on the roster. And then Griffin, you talked about some ideas of what you thought this might mean before we went live. I kind of think this was the plan all along too, because when we got to speak to him at training camp a couple of weeks ago, when he had just returned after a lengthy absence and before he was really into full-time reps, even in practice, he was speaking in terms of being on the team, being excited about getting to play the Niners, and his twin brother Shaquem coming up for the game. So I kind of think both of these were sort of agreed upon, and sometimes that is. Sometimes it's a contractual thing, and they let these guys know, look, we're going to leave you on the practice squad. We're going to elevate you as many times as we can, and then we'll make a decision about the 53-man roster. But were you expecting anything different or anybody else you would have rather seen?
No, I think you're seeing Griffin come up because Kendricks isn't ready. I don't think you'll see Kendricks active on game day just because I don't think he's ready to step into this defense yet and be a actual viable fourth corner or fifth corner, I should say. I think you're going to see Pritchett and Jobe out there. I think Griffin's there as that emergency blanket in case one of them struggles, which between Pritchett and Jobe, I'd say Jobe actually struggled maybe the most in the preseason from what I saw watching the film. Bohanna, I'm not surprised. Like, you're bringing him in because I think this is how you may see a rotation of him and Peely week to week until they max out their elevations opportunities, because I think they want to move Byron Murphy out of being the nose tackle, even though he's listed there on the depth chart, and get him more in that 3-tech role and let him rush the passer a little bit more from that perspective. It'll be interesting to see because, as we know, like, they can elevate guys, but then who are they from their 53 actually going to be sitting? Because you can only dress 46 on game day.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if a Connor O'Toole sitting.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how they. The one thing that'll be interesting, are they going to carry 4 receivers, Dan, into the game?
Yeah,
that'll be the end of the thing.
Bobo out, so we know JSN, Cup, Horton are definitely going to be active, I would say.
Cody White.
Yeah. We're going to have to see what they're thinking on punt returns. Obviously, there was some thought that what's his name? Quentin Jackson, the kid that we picked up from Denver, the kick returner. There was some thought maybe he would have been one of the elevations and do some kick returning, but there's going to be a lot to watch for tomorrow. It's the first time that we're going to see them have to figure out who the actives are with the fullback and 2 fullbacks. Really, we know Brady Russell's going to be active tomorrow because he was named as special teams captain. But the quarterback situation, I might have to admit that I'm wrong, because I've been pushing back against anyone who says they should just deactivate Drew Lock on game day and let Milroe serve as the backup and use him in those packages. And I said, nope. The plan all along has been to have all 3 active. Sometimes they want to have a little misdirection. I understand that. But some of the comments from Kubiak and McDonald this week, I'm not so sure. What do you think?
I think there's a high chance Milroe doesn't dress.
Really?
I think there is.
All that.
And the reason I say that is the way Mike talked about him, McDonald, during his press conference when he was asked about, how are we going to do that? Use Milroe and all these sorts of things. You kind of heard him kind of go, yeah, no, what he did was really good and so on, but he's still developing into being a quarterback. And like, to your point, if you deactivate, if someone was saying, hey, deactivate Drew Lock and you run with Milroe and Darnold, well, say Darnold gets hurt and you're in a divisional game right now. Are you going to trust Jalen Milroe to go out there and win you that game and play true NFL quarterback against starters, play in and play out, when all he played really against in the preseason outside of a couple, a quarter against Green Bay was 3rd and 4th string guys that some aren't even on rosters right now?
Yeah.
I think it makes sense to dress Jalen in certain situations when you've seen things on tape and can scheme for them to bring him into that and be like, okay, cool. we're going to dress Jalen this week because there's some things we've seen that we can take advantage of. At this point, there is nothing you can say, hey, we've seen Salah's defense and they really struggle in this situation. We can do this with Jalen Milroe in the sub package to really give us an edge. Like, that's why I think there's a good chance you see Jalen not dress, and you'll see it as a week-to-week basis kind of thing.
I guess I can see some of the gamesmanship with that, because then if you did it that way, then the next week, the Steelers are going to be like, well, do we prepare for the possibility of him playing or not? Right? Like, it just throws another big curveball out there. And I got to be honest, though, if that is what happens, I'd be really disappointed. I think we're all looking forward to seeing him out there, even if all it is 3rd and 1 sneaks. I just, that'd be a bummer.
It would just, I think from the biggest question you have to keep asking yourself is, do you trust Jalen Milroe to win you a game if you lose Sam Darnold? Are you prepared to potentially sacrifice a game in a way, because how much of him can you truly run the real playbook? Because we saw what happened with Janoko calling, how much you went into gun and you went and did other things that weren't really in the Kubiak call sheet that we had seen with Drew Lock and Sam Darnold. And again, that's kind of to a point of, if we only dress 2, you don't want to have to put that pressure on Jalen Milroe right now. And that's what we talked about. Your buffer layer, you want to have that buffer layer. Week 1, I don't know if it's the time. Like, they may dress all 3, but I could see them just going with Locke and Darnold and, hey, Jalen, stand here, watch, take, write out the script of what's going on, what's being called, and chart everything. Because if you think about it, the Packers did something very similar with Jordan Love. His rookie year, he didn't dress a whole lot till the end of the year. He was on the, deactivated 3rd quarterback a lot of the time, because he'd sit there and chart plays and watch and do those things. And I get they're not the same athlete, and Jalen Milroe gives you a little bit more, but that's where I think it comes down to how are we going to implement him with his athletic ability right now, because his quarterbacking ability does not allow him to be the number 2.
Sure. Just to clarify, I'm glad we got this question from OFG, dude. The way the emergency 3rd quarterback rule works, he has to be one of the 46 active players on game day, designated as the 3rd quarterback. He can only enter the game then if both Darnold and Locke get hurt. That's how you cannot use him voluntarily in that case if you designate him as the emergency quarterback. And then I love this. Bay Area Oasis fan, thanks for joining the stream. Really cool to see you. Hope you enjoy the game tomorrow. And, I understand this sentiment. I agree with you. If we find out in the morning when we wake up that Sam Darnold and Drew Lock both contract the Ebola virus and can't play or whatever tomorrow, and Milroe has to start, changes the entire scenery of the game. And I'm not looking forward to the result in that case. As much as I love his long-term ceiling, I don't want him playing tomorrow. But we're talking about 3rd and 1 sneaks. We're talking about maybe a 3rd and 4 in an RPO. We're talking about 3 or 4 snaps a game, right? If at all.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's
going to come in and lead a drive.
No, he won't come in and lead a drive. No, that's not his role. That won't be his role this year. And if it is his role, then there's been some serious things that have gone wrong with this quarterback room.
Yeah, right. It's like all of the narrative from the offseason and through training camp from the coaching staff would be like, well, let's just throw that in the trash. Hey, Robert, thanks so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. How effective will our pass rush be for the 49ers? It's, to me, this is kind of one of the keys to the season, right? I mean, the pressure numbers were good last year. The sack numbers, though, were middle of the pack. They got better as the year went along, certainly, but this is always so hard to judge because we just don't see it in the preseason. Like, we didn't see any DeMarcus Lawrence, and I think he's going to impact this. For anyone who thinks, hey, DeMarcus Lawrence was on the scrap heap, he's washed up, like, that was his first significant injury in quite some time last year. He's completely healthy, never missed a day in training camp outside of just veteran rest days. When he was on the field in full contact, full padded practices, he was one of the best players on the field in training camp. I can't wait to see him go. I think he's going to impact that pass rush quite a bit. But the reason we really don't know what it's going to look like is because we didn't see Mike McDonald get it all the way into his bag last year. We didn't get to see him empty out his playbook. He admitted that, and he also admitted how excited he is this year to open the whole thing up. So it's one of the things I'm really most interested to see tomorrow.
Well, it's interesting because last night I did my NFC West roundtable show with a couple other content creators from around the division. And the 49ers one we have on is Jason Aponte. And he basically even said, like, from his perspective, the biggest worry he has is Mike McDonald in his bag with guys that understand the scheme now. And it's, he even said in the preseason, you could see some of the vanilla stuff that McDonald was doing still is more advanced than some other teams' vanilla packages. And we know that Dirday was calling a good chunk of those too. And Jason said, like, that's his biggest nightmare from Seattle is Mike McDonald and the way he calls the games and the pieces he now has. So it'll be very interesting.
I've never heard him referred to as Yosemite Sam before, but I like it. Like he kind of looks like it, right? That's funny. I like that a lot. I'm gonna have to steal that from you and stick with that. That's pretty cool. Let's do this. Let me put this up. Like, what are your general thoughts on their roster and how we might match up with it?
I think our secondary, outside of Kittle, who's always given us problems, I like our secondary versus their receiving core. The, MVS being there, and even McDonald alluded to it. Oh, there might be some secrets given here or there, but when I look at it, MVS does not have the rapport yet with Brock Purdy, even though it's deep shots. It's going to be interesting. Again, CMC not being fully healthy. I like our defense versus their offense because outside of Trent Williams, their offensive line doesn't really, if Pooney's playing okay, but outside of Trent Williams and Pooney, their offensive line's kind of okay. Their defensive line, the interior part of it, Michael Williams and Bosa, like I think Williams is going to be a good player. I was higher on him in the draft process. I find it interesting that Alfred Collins and CJ West are not part of the starting rotation, or they may be, but their defense, again, like Fred Warner, yes, he's someone that I'm like, okay, he's still a really good linebacker, probably one of the top 5 in the NFL. Bosa's still a top 5 edge. But the rest of that team, like it doesn't have that same kind of fear factor that the 49ers used to present when I felt we were much less capable of handling their stars. It's just, you don't have Greenlaw, you don't have Ufunga, you don't have a bunch of these guys. Like, yeah, like they kind of do. They look in this awkward state of that reset. And we went through the same process, remember, as we came off the LOB. Like, you had Earl there that one year where Earl was the last remaining member. And it was like, okay, Earl's still there, but this is a weird looking like defense. It doesn't really look like what we're used to. And we're in this weird, like it's very similar.
Yeah, Skyhawk says the 49ers look old and awkward. They're old in key spots, obviously Trent Williams and CMC, but they're incredibly young. And I think, the word you used is one that I've used quite a bit, that it looks like they're in a reset. And I think it might be more similar, rather than after the LOB, it might be a little more similar, or maybe it's a combination of the two, to what we had to do last offseason, moving on from Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams, right? Like they talked openly about how ownership wanted to get their cash spending back under control. And that's what drove a lot of these decisions. You mentioned Greenlaw and Hufanga, but also Charvarius Ward. They trade Deebo Samuel away. Brandon Ayuk obviously isn't back yet. And to your point, I think their offensive line is good. It's fine. I don't know how deep it is. I don't know if they're set up to withstand Trent Williams having to miss any time at his age, because they really haven't addressed tackle in the last couple of drafts, even though last year it really surprised me, especially in the 2024 draft, because it was such a good tackle draft. I was shocked that they went Ricky Pearsall in the first round instead of tackle, although now they're probably glad that they did because of all the injuries in their wide receiver room. They still got Fred Warner. I mean, that's always a guy you have to deal with in the middle of the field. I talked with Rob Guerrera yesterday on the NFC West mixtape. He's from the Gold Standard Network. He said he likes their secondary maybe more than some people do. I think what's interesting, you touched on George Kittle. I think it's interesting. I think this game in some ways might come down to like who exploits the middle of the field better, because the 49ers are going to try and pick on us in the middle of the field, because that's that's just what their offense is designed to do anyway. They love those in-breaking routes, work in the middle of the field, those digs, and they're gonna test Nick Emenwari when he's in there playing that big nickel, and they're gonna see if he's capable of covering a George Kittle or a back out of the backfield. But by the same token, the 49ers are starting Upton Stout as their nickel corner, a rookie from Western Kentucky, I believe. I saw him down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. 5'8" rookie starting his first game playing in the nickel. I think that's a sneaky matchup that I think both teams are going to be looking to exploit. That I don't think has gotten talked about enough.
Yeah, the middle of the field is going to be kind of the interesting factor in this game, and it's going to also depend on, can these linebackers, especially Seattle's, because they've struggled with it even last year, how good are they at taking away the play action middle shots? And I think I will say this, I think there's a very good case to be made that maybe Seattle's leading receiver tomorrow, even though we have JSN and Cooper Kupp, could be Elijah Arroyo, because of his ability to stretch the middle of that field and their ability to kind of use him in the slot and move him around and do some of those different things. I think there's a good chance Arroyo could surprise us and actually have a very big impact on tomorrow's game.
Interesting you say that, because the Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks and Rhett Lewis always do this rookie draft every week on their Move the Sticks podcast, where they pick rookies from each position or skill position group, and they kind of play weekly fantasy against each other. And Arroyo was DJ's tight end pick, which I thought was interesting. Like, he's really high on him. He thinks he's going to get, and for the same reason that you talked about, he thinks he's going to get not necessarily a lot of volume, because they're definitely going to spread the ball around, but that he might get a couple of those shots. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I don't know what matchup I'm more fascinated by or looking forward to, because it's kind of strength on strength and weakness on weakness. You've got the San Francisco offense, which, especially if CMC is anywhere close to his normal self, even if he's 80% of what we're used to seeing, still a very, very good player. But that's the strength of their team with all the changes they've had on defense. Going up against our defense was the strength of our team right now because of continuity and all the guys that are back and being in the program for a second year. And then you flip that around and you've got the Seahawks offense with all those changes and a completely new coaching staff and scheme and all the different players that were brought in to play key positions, obviously quarterback, wide receiver, tight ends, against a 49er defense that looks much different than it did last year. And especially up front, as you mentioned, is so young. And we really don't know what they're going to look like. Now, they struggled mightily against the run last year with more experienced players, but that was a Nick Sorensen defense that Rob talked about with me yesterday. Said he was in nickel about 80% of the time. They just weren't set up to defend the run. So I expect that under Robert Saleh to be much better, just from a schematic standpoint and a coaching standpoint, as far as run fits. It's just a matter of how prepared is this new and presumably improved offensive line of the Seahawks under John Benton and Clint Kubiak. How prepared are they to go tomorrow in their first real game up against this young front for the 49ers?
No, and that's a big factor. This run game has to perform tomorrow. It can't be, the offense is so predicated on the run game being effective, and again, effective and explosive are two different things. And I think that's one thing we have to do and understand with Seahawks fans is we can't be expecting massive explosive runs all the time. And actually, I was going to touch on this, that Mookie Alexander put this in. This is what they kind of talked about at one point too during the pre-draft process with Arroyo, is we can use him as an X. We can line him up outside. He's that athletic. Now, if you bring Saubert and Robbie Oots will be there, and we know Brady Russell will dress because he is a captain, like, you have theoretically in that case 1, 2, 3, 5 tight ends.
Yeah.
In a way, right? With 2 being fullback / tight ends. So you theoretically have 9 pass catchers tomorrow inadvertently. And you've seen what they've done. Like, Robbie Utes can do some of the things Kyle Juszczyk does well for the 49ers, which is, hey, we'll put him in as our fullback, but then we shift him, and now he's lined up more as a true tight end in a 12 personnel look, and we slide him across. Like, he can do some of those things because of his tight end background, and that's where he becomes more of a factor that way. I think, again, like, I predict out of our receiving core, Arroyo will probably be the leader from the tight end room. I think Cooper Kupp could have a really big game, Dan, on the other side.
I mean, again, that comes down to middle of the field. How I think I would expect Clint Kubiak with those condensed formations. And, I think Kupp's going to work out of the slot a lot more than JSN is this year. I expect him to kind of be the primary guy to try to get him matched up against Stout and use his route running ability and his ability to with body control and position for the football. I think he is going to be a big part of the game plan. The other thing, to Mookie's point, is I don't think I ever expected them to dress more than 4 wide receivers for this game, because I do think because of the tight end depth and we already know that Kubiak likes to use as much 12 personnel and even 13 personnel as most OCs in the league. I think tomorrow's an identity game, and I think it's a little bit of a message game. And I think, you stick to the tape, you stick to the game plan. What do we see? What do we think will work? But I think they also want to try and send a message at the same time. We're different, and we're going to show you that tomorrow, just how different we are. And we're not just going to hope that this offensive line is good to go week 1. We're going to give them some help, and we're going to line up in 12%. We're going to try to bully you and that young defensive front and send a message, win the game, but also send a message at the same time that this rivalry is changing, and we're not just going to be a team you can come in and out physical us, because let's not kid ourselves. That's why the Seahawks have only won 1 of the last 7 games against the 49ers. They've gotten beat physically and with explosive plays, and the second one kind of begins with the first one.
Yep, it does. Oh, there we go. John always agrees with me. I love it. John, we're sitting there on 13-4 island, my friend, getting ready for win 1 in that island.
So Bay Area Oasis fan, his Oasis, and I get this, totally get this. His Oasis affinity for Oasis a little bit stronger than his affinity for the 49ers. But, the 49ers play 17 games this year. Oasis only plays the Rose Bowl 1 time, right? And they've been away for 10 years. So kudos to him. Have a good time tomorrow. I don't blame you for skipping the game, for sure. And you can always record it, watch it later, right? You can't record the Oasis concert and get the same exact. I think it's fun that we have a 49er guy in here. He's from your side, by the way. So,
well, that's always good.
Anyone's upset about that, he came through the Hawks side.
blame the Hawks side, 100%. It's me cultivating with all the other content creators, Dan.
Let's kind of get to the theme of the day, right? Everybody, we're always optimistic for week 1. As I said at the top, we talk ourselves into feeling good about things. And I've always used the analogy of back when boxing was actually boxing and you'd watch a big fight. You always had your favorite, and that's the guy that you key on. And so you notice every time he lands a jab, every time he lands a punch, you think he's winning, even when maybe he's not, because that's where your focus is. I think we tend to do that with all our sports teams. And, we can watch our team, and, this year more than ever, I got to see him practice. And so it's real easy for me to sit here and say, there's something unique about this team. There's something special about them, and the vibe and the attitude and how bought in everybody is. And all these guys want to be here, and nobody's upset about their contract or wants out or any of that. And that they have total alignment with the new coaching staff. It's a team that I think is prepared to play in the vision that Mike McDonald set out when he got the job. But I'm the first to admit, even though I think they're going to win between 11 and 13 games, that football is football and shit happens. And sometimes you don't know, but I just kind of want to take everyone's temperature out there. Like, how good are we really feeling? Obviously, John's feeling pretty good. I think that's the biggest one I've seen. I said 2
That's bigger than mine.
I said 2 scores, I think, last week. And then someone came back and said, well, that could be 2 field goals, which is kind of a cop out on my part, right? Yesterday on the NFC West mixtape with Rob, I picked 24-17.
I said 27-17 in mine.
Let's see. I want to make
sure.
Wow,
Ryan came in with a big one.
I want to make sure I'm not missing a bunch of these. Mr. Joe says 24-14. I assume Seahawks. Oh, no, Niners. 24-14 Niners. Okay, Mr. Joe. He's got the Niners winning 24-14. We got Lucky 27-17 Hawks. Steven 27-13. OI agrees with John 37-14. Ryan, 26-20. How do you see this game starting out?
Oh, I think it's going to be slow. I think it'll take probably I think the first points of the game, because I won't say touchdown, first points of the game won't come maybe till the late first quarter, early second quarter.
Really?
Yeah. I just think because the whole part of week one that I think sometimes gets missed is, yes, it's real football. Yes, it's all starters, but majority of them haven't really played a lot through the preseason. So it is truly still a bit of a feeling out process for that first bit and getting used to the contact and all those things because they can only do so much. That's truly where when I look at if you go back and watch some of the older week one games, like back when Mike Holmgren was the coach and stuff, you see teams start faster. But that was because they were doing two-a-days and hitting and doing those things and conditioning themselves for it. Yeah. Now that you don't have that as much, I think you see a little bit more of it and kind of that ease into. Like, you look at the games that we've seen the last couple of nights, they've been slow in some respects to get going. And to see teams like, the one thing I'll say defensively in the first game, I was kind of shocked at how bad the defenses were, to be honest with you. But it's going to take a bit. I think it'll be slow, especially it's a divisional game, so you're not going to want to give an inch.
And yet last year in Clint Kubiak's first and only season in New Orleans, we saw them come out of the gate with 40 plus against Carolina week one. That was easy to explain, but then they did it against Dallas in week two against, Micah Parsons and all those guys. So who knows? It's so hard to tell. Obviously they would like it to look like it did against Kansas City. If I had kind of an off the wall prediction, I'll say this: there's been so much focus on the running game and how they're going to establish that. And they will. We're going to see balance and we're going to see a commitment to the running game. I kind of think the first play of the game for the Seahawks tomorrow is going to be a pass. Play action. Under center, play action, pass. Not a deep shot necessarily. I mean, if it's there, sure. But like just something within the operations of their offense. And because everyone is going to be expecting run on that first play. Here's a question from Noah Lansing. What's the biggest variable that will make or break this season in your opinions? I'll let you go first.
Biggest thing that'll break this season, the offensive line doesn't come together. It's the easiest one, and the most obvious one, but it is the clear truth of the matter is that, like, if our O-line struggles again, this offense doesn't have, and as much as we give Grubb grief, Grubb at least had some decent deep field, take shot design plays to get guys open that we saw throughout the season. We don't really have that same kind of, I think, offense in some respects, because that's not what this offense is built on. This offense is built on running. It's built on timing. It's built on playing in close or games with a lead where you can truly control the clock. It's not built to play, hey, we're going to spread this ball over the yard and throw it 40 times, 45 times. It's just not. And that's where I think if our offensive line struggles or does not come together, that's going to be the thing that'll break this season.
Yeah. Let's see. How do you say this? Abdomus Prime. Okay. I thought Courtney Jackson, Ricky White were going to be elevated with Bohanna and Shaq Griffin. You can only elevate two, right?
I believe so, yeah.
That's why. So my biggest variable is I still, even with Bohanna being there, I still just generally have some concerns about lack of quality, big depth up front. And I looked at some things before we started here and just kind of compared it against San Francisco, because they're not that much bigger than we are. With the Bohanna elevation, we have 4 defensive linemen that are 300 pounds plus. San Francisco only has 5, and they don't have that dude. They don't have a guy like Bohanna. They don't have a 340, 50-pound plugger in the middle either. Most of their defensive tackles are in that 305 to 310 range. Their 2 starters are under 310, I think. But I just found this interesting looking at how teams, and this isn't an answer to the question that was, but I just found this was interesting to talk about. I'd love to get your thoughts on it as a coach. but just how differently teams look at their own rosters and describe their own rosters. Looking at the official rosters of both teams, here's what the Seahawks have listed for their front seven. 2 defensive ends, which is weird because they mostly play a 3-4 hybrid, so they really don't have true defensive ends with the outside linebackers. 2 defensive ends, 2 defensive tackles, 1 nose tackle, and 9 linebackers. Now that's inside and outside linebackers or your edge players, for a total of 14 players on the roster that play in the front 7. San Francisco just says, we don't even want to break it up like that. 6 linebackers, 11 DLs, defensive linemen. We don't give them designations or positions. And so those guys are defensive ends, edge players. We just kind of toss that word around now. So they have 17 players that they've committed to on their 53-man roster in their front 7 to our 14. It's, everyone's healthy right now, knock on wood. So that's a good thing. It just feels like there's a lot of pressure on a guy like, say, Mike Morris, who we didn't really see as much as we wanted to out of him last year in his second year. He's going to have to be in that rotation. He's going to have to play. And, Bohanna can take some of those nose tackle reps off of Murphy because we want to see Byron Murphy play more 3-tech this year, right? But, to me, that's still my biggest, if a guy twists his ankle in the first quarter, we could be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. From a defense perspective or from a coaching perspective, Dan, the whole thing you were talking about there with how they do their depth charts, it's gamesmanship. It's truly, it could be that, hey, they don't view any one individual in a certain way. We can move them around and do different things and so on and so forth. For me, I'm one of those weird people when I do my depth chart generally. I'll have my Y tight ends, and then I'll have my F tight ends, and I'll have my X and my Z receivers. And then in Canadian, I'll also have my R. You can add to that, which is what I call a rover. And then you got your tailback and so on. And it all depends on what system you've come from, how you like to determine things and stuff. But to your other point with Mike Morris, I think they're banking on Riley Mills coming back and being a factor in this D line in a lot of ways. I just don't know if they trust Mike Morris, right? He in the preseason, to your point, when we were there earlier, we saw him be effective and be wow, look at Mike Morris. He's blowing up plays in the backfield. The day that we were there, he was constantly wrecking havoc. And then it was you saw it sporadically. And that's the thing. Mike Morris is kind of like this. Mm-hmm. He's like a earthquake graph. There's no steadiness to it. It's just up and down the entire way. And that's what gets you on a team, but can also get you out of a team and off a team very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike McDonald did tell us during camp they have a role in mind for him. They have a plan for Mike Morris, so it'll be interesting to see what that is. I think he's going to play a little bit of inside and outside. Would really like to see him become the player that I liked so much in the draft. He was one of my most mocked players leading up to that draft for the Seahawks. And not to break my arm patting myself on the back, but I usually took him in the 5th round. So he was just a guy I really liked his motor. He's not a twitchy guy. He's going to win with power, and he's going to win with motor. But I'm kind of bummed that he shaved the dreads off, like almost all the Seahawks did this year. He just looked, I don't know, he looked faster. Dreads make you look faster, right? Thanks for bringing this up, John. Wait, where'd it go? Whoa. Shout out to the guys at Fast Fashion Brewing, and wanted to bring this up because man, it's in walking distance to Lumen Field. It's in a great location down there. It's where we did those live shows from. It's on First Avenue, 1700 block, right across the street from Showbox Soto, right next door to Hooverville. They brew 14 different styles of beers. Really, really good stuff. I love their German Pilsner. Matt and Randy Storm, son and father duo. Matt will be there tomorrow. If you're going to the game, swing by Fast Fashion Brewing for a beer first. Really cool little sitting area there. A lot of personality and great beers. Really proud to have them as a sponsor. And the beer that I like, the last one I had that I really enjoy, it's a hazy pale called the Rain Man. I'm going to tie this in here. Not only named after Sean Kemp, but also was done in collaboration with him. And we had a question in the comment. I'm not going to put it on the screen just because, I don't know, some people might be sensitive about this. But JetBlue Amigo asks a question in the comments. So this is for you. It's not exactly walking distance, but down in that area, the best one is Sean Kemp's. You'll find the best selection and the best prices. So you know what I'm talking about. We'll do that. Let's see. What else do we have here? Hank says, I don't think Mills plays this season. He will. I expect him back midseason. That's what Schneider said when they drafted him. The last practice I was able to attend, he's running. He's running straight ahead and running full speed without a brace. It's and I think John or Mike addressed this last week. The next step is to get into the lateral movement stuff, and that'll be started. I think, to your point, Bryce, they think so highly of him. They feel like they won the lottery by getting him as late as they did because of the injury. They think he has a huge, bright future. He's going to be a real key to this defensive line moving forward. And just like they're doing, I think, with Uchenna Nwosu right now, they're not going to bring him back until he is not only 100% healthy and ready to play, but also has the practice reps and they feel like understands his role in this defense. He could be that wild card that remember Darrell Taylor's rookie year? Different story there. He had a metal rod in his leg. There was a complication. There were setbacks there. But if you recall, he was activated the last 3 or 4 weeks of that season. And I was told on good authority that after the Green Bay playoff loss that year, there was a heated exchange between John Schneider and Pete Carroll over Pete's resistance to playing Darrell Taylor in that game and trying to help with the pass rush. And that was one of those moments where those two did not see eye to eye. And I got that from someone who witnessed the actual interaction. I don't think it's going to be like this. We're talking about an ACL. ACLs these days. We saw Jordan Brooks come back 8 months after tearing his ACL and start the opener without a knee brace. I think they're just being really, really careful with him.
I agree too. And I've actually, similarly to what you just said, I heard through the grapevine that that as one occasion was the Darrell Taylor situation. I've also heard that there was another situation and another dispute over a player, and it came when Bobby Wagner was let go the second time. That was a big moment there in that decidingness of Pete not being back in some respects. Was they had a massive disagreement because Pete did not, the first time Bobby left was Pete was not happy. And the second time he was absolutely not happy.
I do want to address this from OFG dude. Uchenna will never be 100% healthy. This is something I disagree with just because of Mike McDonald's insistence over and over again that, first of all, Uchenna never had a patella tendon injury. It was never an ACL. It was like an MCL, wasn't it, when he got hit by Wyatt Teller, and then he had a little cleanup this offseason. The way Mike McDonald talks about how they've had to hold him back in rehab. But I will just ask you this. Did you think the same thing about Abe Lucas? Because his injury situation was much more mysterious, much more vague, took way longer. And we're talking about a bigger dude, more stress on the knee, playing on the edge, right? And he just signed a new extension, right? When we thought that maybe that wasn't even going to be on the table. I fully expect Uchenna to come back sooner rather than later. I think within the next 2 weeks, and they're not going to rush him because they don't have to. We got some depth there. And they're not going to bring him back until they're sure that he's fully ready. And I think you're going to see pretty damn close to the old Uchenna Nwosu. And I think he's a guy that's probably going to pretty quickly play in the rotation even before Boye Mafe. I think he's essentially going to be a starter when he comes back.
I do as well. I think what you'll see Derek Hall and Boye Mafe move into the third down pass rusher roles a little bit. And I think you'll see Lawrence and Uchenna own the rundowns.
You were the only one that believed in Abe, OFG, because that was tough. It's, man, the older I get, the more I think injuries give me pause. But I think that's because every third day I wake up injured at my advancing age. You know, like you watch it was just so mysterious with Abe because of the way Pete talked about it. Like, it took them that first season when he came back for the last 6 games, they still didn't know what it was. So they couldn't fix it because they didn't know what it was. And Pete used the word chronic. And, you know, that always, whenever I hear chronic, I think degenerative, you know? But man, modern medicine is crazy. How many guys remember when Tajay Spears was drafted about 4 years ago and the reports came out that he either didn't have an ACL or that his ACL was so bad he was probably only going to be a 1 contract guy? Doesn't look like it now.
No, it doesn't.
How's your boy doing?
He's doing okay. They're not winning, but he's doing okay. He's starting to, I think, understand the jump from high school to NCAA Division II is a little bit steeper in some respects, but he's doing well.
Let me do this real quick because people might not know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So Bryce, the coach, right? He's coached high school football and he played, and he has a quarterback academy, and he works with skill position players. And one of his former students or former players got a scholarship to the University of Mary, which most of you have probably never heard about in your entire lives. Division II school. But University of Mary is a place that has, it's near and dear to my heart. I know exactly where it is. It's in Bismarck, North Dakota, where I was sports director at the NBC station, KFYR, there for a couple of years back in the mid-90s. And ironically enough, like, there's so many layers to this story, but the year I got there, the University of Mary was very, very good. And they made it all the way to, at that time, it was the NAIA. They made it all the way to the national semifinals, where they played at Sparks Stadium in Puyallup against Central Washington and John Kitna. Now, it was close at halftime, and then Kitna went nuts. He had like 400 yards that day and 5 touchdowns in a driving rainstorm. It was one of the most memorable days of my life because my back blew out, and I had a chiropractor tell me he couldn't do anything for me, and it was excruciating. It was a horrible experience, but that's a whole nother story. But it was a huge win for Central at the time. That was the year, if some of you might remember, they made it to the national championship, played in the Tacoma Dome, actually tied in the national championship. One of the dumbest things I've ever heard of in sports in my entire life. But I got to do 2 games on television play-by-play for the University of Mary that year. One of my greatest memories, 2 of my greatest memories, I guess, in my broadcasting career. And on the drive back here from Seattle last week, we drove through Bismarck, North Dakota, and I got a chance to stop by and see the old station, the old stomping grounds, KFYR. You can see over there in the corner. They're actually affiliated with Fox now too. It's kind of a weird situation, but that station dominates. I don't know how familiar you guys are with like how TV ratings work. We got a 60 share in the market, and the market was huge. We went all the way, all of North Dakota down into South Dakota. 60 share. That means 60% of all TVs turned on at any given time were watching our news. It was interesting. The interesting thing was, though, like driving through there again 30 years later, I was there for 2 years. Nothing looked familiar to me. It was like I had never been in that city in my entire life. I drive to Missoula now, where I was when I was like 5, 6, 7. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Like the whole thing. I had to use GPS just to get to the TV station. But anyway, that's what Bryce is looking off screen at. Let me do this real quick too. We're going to pay some bills here real quick. You guys bear with me for just a second. I want to bring this message to you. It's a 1.5 minutes long. We'll be right back. If you're a big fan of daily fantasy sports, I have got the app for you. It's Sleeper. I've got Ashton Genty going up against the New England Patriots on the road. Pete Carroll's Raider debut. I don't think there's any question the volume is going to be there for the number 6 overall pick. I see him getting 20 plus touches in this game against an incredibly young Patriots team, even though it's on the road. And I really also like Bo Nix this weekend up against the Titans, and Cam Ward's debut as the number 1 overall pick. Could be a chance for some extra possessions for the Broncos in year 2. For Nix, I like everything that Sean Payton has put around him. Bodes very well for him behind a very good offensive line. Sleeper is the best experience to connect over sports together. A wide variety of offerings in every sport, not just the NFL. It's a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on games in real time with other users. Get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests so you can enjoy sports the way they were meant to be enjoyed together. Download the #1 sports app today. Use promo code FOREVER. You can see it down below. You'll get 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Just a little clarification. JetBlue asked about this. There are pay features of Sleeper, but the majority of the games that they offer are all free, and you can play free fantasy football. I was introduced to it last year. I actually played in the 12. Were you in this too? The 12 talk, the best ball.
Mm-hmm.
Played in the best ball fantasy. I sucked at it. I was terrible.
I was horrible too. I think you and me were the worst in that.
Yeah, it was bad. But part of that was because I took CMC. That was a huge, I think I had the first pick. But actually, and let me throw this out there for y'all to chew on, because I can set up a free pool where we do picks every week and we can do it together on the show. It's totally free. And so, yeah, that part of it works in Washington. In Washington is one of those 25 states where you can't do the gambling part of it unless you have a VPN. But we can do a free pool. If you guys are into that, I can set that up and send the link out. That might be kind of fun to do picks every week, and it would be a great thing to talk about. So yeah, just a little clarity there, but much better promotional partner for a bunch of those reasons than the one that I won't name that was sponsored last year. Let's just say that. Do you play? Are you in any fantasy leagues this year?
Oh, I am in one with you, sir. We have the one where I took, sadly, AJ Brown, who did all of Jack Nothing for me on Thursday night. So, but I actually did have a draft last weekend, and I took quite a few Seahawks but later rounds I got those guys. I didn't take any early really in that draft, and I won the league that I was drafting in last weekend. So I won it last year. So I had the lovely snake draft option of last pick, first pick, then wait. Last pick, then first pick, then wait. I was able to build a decent team. I was able to get Baker Mayfield. I already had, it's a keeper. So I had 3 keepers. So one of my keepers was JSN. Another one was Bucky Irving, and another one was Nico Collins. So I had 2 receivers already, but I was able to add some pieces that I'm Mr. I don't ever in my fantasy draft a kicker. I always take an extra player at that point and then see if I need to start a kicker at some point later on in the weekend. I'll pick somebody up before they play.
We have breaking news from Mookie Alexander. Cam Hayward of the Pittsburgh Steelers agreed to terms on a revised contract for 2025, adding $3.2 million in incentives tied to playoffs and playoff wins. Sources tell the insiders from NFL Network, I presume Hayward can now earn close to $18 million this year. So why does that matter? He's not a Seahawk because the Seahawks obviously play the Steelers week 2. So we know we'll be facing Cam Hayward in week 2, but still will not be facing Derek Harmon, the rookie out of Oregon there, their first-round draft pick. Seahawks are getting a little bit fortunate in these first 4 games, missing good rookie defensive tackles. And, man, Harmon looked like a beast in the preseason for them before he got hurt. But also Walter Nolan not going to be there for the Cardinals in week 4 either, the rookie out of Ole Miss. Yeah. Bay Area Oasis fan says, sounds like the Juwan contract. This is kind of becoming the more common thing. Somebody else just did this too, where they just, they make it, well, Trey Hendrickson, they basically did the same thing. Like, here's just more money. We don't want to sign you to an extension. You're 31 years old, whatever. We have our salary cap to manage. But here's just more money to get you into camp right now.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't the Seahawks do that with Marshawn Lynch at one point where they reworked his deal and gave him more money
or more guaranteed money, more upfront money? Yeah, they've done that.
By the way, Dan, how much are you loving seeing Marshawn as a NFL photographer on the sidelines? Like cool. I can't get over it. Like, he's sitting there and he's, talking to Hampton after he ran out of bounds, being like, hey, you can't do that. But But that's just Marshawn. And it's cool to see who from the professional sports world has now gone into photography. We're talking about Randy Johnson takes NFL photos now.
Griffey.
Marshawn Lynch, Griffey does. It's kind of this interesting. If you were involved in Seattle sports, after you finish your playing career, you become a photographer in the NFL.
Speaking of fantasy football, he didn't rack up a bunch of points last night, but man, I was happy with Hampton's role for the Chargers yesterday. Like, they gave Harris a couple of cursory carries kind of early, and then it's pretty obvious he's running back one in that offense. And it didn't look that great last night. He didn't find a lot of running lanes, but that's a Jim Harbaugh offense. And man, let me ask you, as a quarterback guy, like Justin Herbert is a guy that's always kind of been on the outside of that top 5, top 6 discussion. Pretty polarizing player. Some people think he's an elite quarterback. Some people think he's just another dude or a mid-level quarterback. Was that the best football you've seen him play last night?
Oh, consistency-wise, yes, 100%. That was the best we've seen in Justin Herbert from
throws, dude, like tight windows.
The one thing I expected when Jim Harbaugh got hired was a very similar situation to what Alex Smith went with. Alex Smith had talent, but Alex Smith struggled with throwing with anticipation and into those windows. Justin Herbert did to an extent too. Justin Herbert's always had the long arm and can throw it down the field, but sometimes it was that anticipation of throwing those in breaks and throwing some of those timing routes. Now that he's had that full offseason with Jim Harbaugh and that coaching staff and this offense, now you're seeing that come to flourish a bit now. I really like what I saw from Justin Herbert last night. I think that AFC West is going to be very scary. And speaking of another quarterback that I'm very high on, I'm watching your guy that once was a Coug, who's now currently playing for Oklahoma. He's playing Michigan right now, and he is just dicing up Michigan's defense.
Dude, I love John Mateer so much.
He's looking good.
Watching him, game in, game out last week, and his development and how far he came. And then I got to shake his hand on the field after the Apple Cup last year, and I was just taken aback by just how thick he is. Like, he has from the lower half, from the waist down, he's built like a lineman. And he's so he
reminds me of Herbert.
He does. And he kind of looks like a central casting would create a quarterback for a movie role. And obviously what got him snaps early in his career at WSU behind Cam Ward, of course, as a freshman, was coming in running some of that Wildcat stuff, kind of like Jalen Milroe type stuff. So we didn't really know. He would come in, mop up sometimes late in games, and it's like, oh, this kid can throw the football a little bit. Look, my heart hurt when he left, but I totally got it. I didn't expect him to stay. I thought he had bigger things ahead of him. And Michael Thompson certainly is happy that he's in Oklahoma, our buddy, over there with Jim.
He really gives me Herbert vibes, though. Like, watching him throw the ball, the way he delivers it. He's got that 3-quarter release. He's athletic enough. And we saw Justin Herbert last night use his legs more than I've seen him use them in the past. And he showed the type of athlete he was, why he stuck at Oregon and was able to run a lot of that read option type of stuff. But man, John Mateer, he's rising up my draft stock of quarterbacks.
Here's what I'm saying. I said this last night on Twitter. I think there's a chance, but based on, in part, what we've seen from some of the other guys through the first week and a half, 2 weeks, I think there's a chance that he gets to QB1.
Oh, yeah.
I do. Just the intangibles, the leadership, the ability to run, how he's built physically, that arm is legit. And I asked you because I thought it looked just slightly different. I thought his release point was a little bit lower than it was at WSU. You've taught me about what it means to be a rotational thrower and how that's been a revolutionary thing when it comes to teaching quarterbacks, that you don't come over the top anymore. It's a more natural motion to kind of throw rotationally and from a lower arm slot. But my goodness, the arm strength, Todd McShay is extremely high on John Mateer right now. I think the sky is the limit for that guy.
And for my opinion right now, if I was to give you my top 3 QBs going into the 2026 draft right now, if they all declared, I'd probably go Mateer is one of them. I'm not going to say a 1, 2, or 3, but the top 3 would be in no particular order. Mateer, Nussmeier, is the other one. Garrett Nussmeier, who
he's playing right now too, right?
he is playing right now. And this one's kind of an interesting one, but I'm still going to go with Drew Allar. I think Drew Allar and what he does, people seem to have forgotten about him a little bit and like how high he was up last year in this draft class, in last year's group. But I think those are your three. I think Cade Klubnik can get himself into that conversation. For me with Sellers, I love the upside potential, but some of the inaccuracies throwing scare me a little bit. Similar to how I view Jalen Milroe this year coming out, where like there's things I like, but you got to be able to complete the passer portion of it at the next level. Okay. And that's where it could be interesting.
Speaking of quarterbacks, let me do something. And because you talked about improving and growing. And I think that's something that, when we roll up our sleeves and get into draft season, it's one of the most frustrating elements of the way some people view development is you are what you are, and you're always going to be that. And you don't get a chance to develop. You're not allowed to get better. You can't, there is no growth potential, right? There is no projection. That's wrong. And we see players get better all the time. And it's one of my favorite things actually about watching young athletes, especially when they make the jump in levels, is watching them kind of blossom before your eyes. And I think we've seen a great example of that here in Seattle. We got to see Geno Smith become a better player than he ever was before in his career. Now we get to see it again with Sam Darnold. And I know you're familiar with this. And this guy is he's a good friend of your show. He's one of my favorite Twitter follows. He did a deep dive, as he is wont to do, on Sam Darnold. And I just wanted to, let me see if I can shrink this down just a little bit. Whoops. Nope, I did the opposite. Just to make it look a little tighter here on the screen. Here's what he said. The great Sam Darnold summer study is complete. I watched every NFL snap he's taken from 21 to 24. So that would be from the time he went to Carolina. So you don't have to. Here are my thoughts summarized in the form of a thread. And I find Seahawk Nerd to be very objective. He's a Seahawk fan, but he's like the tape don't lie. He's a tape don't lie guy. 2021, effective in quick game targets to tight ends and running backs, consistently leads receivers too far. Willing scrambler, but fails to do much with it. Throws picks going to second and third reads. Lots of balls batted down by rushers. Too inaccurate to complete passes in small windows. And reading that first one, I thought, that's not the guy that I've seen all through training camp, right? 2022, pushes the ball downfield with more conviction, which immediately made me think of Kyle McCord's progression and how much he improved last year at Syracuse from his time at Ohio State. Got more aggressive, trusted his arm more, pushed the ball downfield more aggressively, and got great results out of it. Gets to backside concepts and throws over the middle. More comfortable in play action. Poor pocket presence. Seems surprised by pressure. That's the ghosts. Late errant on shallow crossers. Great accuracy on posts. Unwavering faith in his number one receiver. 2023. Extremely high success rate. Primarily relying on quick, short passes outside the numbers, 5-yard gains. More comfortable scrambling with flashes of creativity out of structure. So that's the Kyle Shanahan effect. This is the year that he got spent with him and Clint Kubiak in San Francisco. 2024. Most comfortable I've seen him standing in and throwing from a messy pocket. Start to see him rely more on coverage indicators than schemed up timing throws. More accurate than ever before. Will put the ball in harm's way, getting rid of it at the last possible second. I like how he always balances the positive with the negatives he's seeing. 2024, 2 out of 2. This is a continuation of that. Still willing to run for a first down if it's open. Has a good feel for timing of the pass on screens. Looks off defenders when he can diagnose pre-snap. Neither quick nor slow to get to checkdowns, but uses them often. Still gets the jitters holding onto the ball. That's been a criticism of his. There are some things about Sam that have been consistent from 21 to 24. He can get locked onto a favorite target pre-snap and throw to them even if they're not open. He believes he can outrun pass rushers when being chased out of the pocket. His arm strength is legit. And there are some things that have changed about Sam over his career. He's gotten more accurate. He's gotten more comfortable throwing under pressure. He's gotten better at reading out the play and finding the zone window to throw in. Overall, I think what we can expect from Sam is a QB who's willing to hold on to the ball to wait for the right opportunity. This leads to variance. Sometimes the play develops out and he makes a perfect throw. Other times he will take a bad sack or force a bad throw. Sam is also very capable of quick game. Thanks to his arm strength, he can throw any out or in-breaking route with zip into a tight window. He'll get the ball to his tight ends and running backs underneath and let them work for yards after the catch. Sam isn't the system, but he will be the engine of the system. At the end of the day, I see Sam Darnold as a quarterback in the mold of Jared Goff or Brock Purdy in the sense that he will occasionally create a negative play trying to squeeze every drop out of the scheme. He won't leave meat on the bone, but he might make a mess doing so. My research shows that median EPA with win probability filtered 10 to 90%. He has the most accurate name on Twitter, by the way, of Seahawk Nerd. And total EPA with win probability filtered 20 to 80% are two of the most predictive and stickiest EPA metrics for QBs. In 2024, Sam Darnold was one of 8 quarterbacks with good to great numbers in both metrics. He has gotten better every year. What can he do this year to get even better in your eyes as a quarterback coach?
So there's a couple things, and I love Seahawks Nerd. He's like the best kept secret in the Seahawks community in my regard. Like, some people don't know he exists. I strongly encourage everyone to follow him because he brings out amazing stuff just like that. That's how I've seen Sam in a lot of ways. When I did my study this offseason on Sam, I just didn't have the time or the ability to publish it to the level that Seahawk Nerd does, which is why I love his work so much. What that also screams to me, Dan, I'll start with this, with the quarterback, trajectory and development and everything. Do you know how many seasons Sam Darnold played at USC?
2.
2. Have you ever heard of the Bill Parcells rule of quarterbacks?
Is it based on college snap counts?
Let me bring it up here for you. It's a very good rule, and it's something that I look at and use a lot because Bill Parcells drafted a lot of good quarterbacks in his time in the NFL. So his rules for evaluating and drafting quarterbacks: 1, be a college senior. 2, be a college graduate. 3, start 3 or more years in college. Start 30 or more games, win 23 or more games, throw 2 or more touchdown passes for each interception, and complete 60% of your passes. So when
he never would have drafted Josh Allen.
He exactly. But if you look at it, what that speaks to is development factors, especially. So like it kind of explains why. So Parcells preferred quarterbacks who were seniors as they had indicated maturity and experience in college. The college graduating from college was important to Parcells, reflected a commitment to education and discipline. Starting 3 or more years, a quarterback should have significant playing time, ideally starting for at least 3 seasons to gain the valuable experience they need. 30 more games, basically talks about in-game experience, suggesting that a quarterback should have faced various game situations. The 23 or more wins is crucial because it, shows your quarterback has a true proven track record of winning. And the 2 touchdowns, a strong touchdown to TD interception ratio indicates an ability for a quarterback to make smart decisions and avoid costly mistakes. And so when you look at Sam, if I look at his USC stats, he started 13 and 14 games. So that gives you 27 games in total. So he beats that threshold. However, when I look at his stats, he's over 60%, but he went from, as a freshman, he completed 67% and dropped all the way down to 63 as a sophomore. And his interception numbers went up. So he threw 31 touchdowns and 9 interceptions as a freshman. He threw 26 touchdowns and 13 interceptions as a sophomore. Sam Darnold needed more time in college. He really and truly did. And that's where, when you go to and then to go to the New York Jets, and you go 2018, 2019, 2020. So it's 3 seasons with the Jets. Started 13 games, 12 games. He completed 57, 61, and 59% of his passes. So what you're seeing is a guy that hasn't seen everything, the completion. Yeah. And so when you look at what Seahawk Nerd talked about there with as he started to play more, as he started to get into these systems and start learning how to read defenses, all of a sudden the completion percentage goes up. So, at Carolina, his last year, it was as low as 58. Then it gets up to 60 in San Francisco. It doesn't play very much, obviously.
Sure.
But then jumps to 66.2 last year with Minnesota. So in that time, you've seen the development and the learning curve that if he had been a 4-year starter, he doesn't come out until the 2020 NFL season. And so he's had that time to develop. And so for me, when I look at Sam Darnold, the thing that I want to see from him is learning to live for the next play. When it's not there, get to your check down sooner.
And that's a huge emphasis from Clint Kubiak. And Clint also has those built into every play, which is not something that Ryan Grubb provided.
No, Ryan Grubb didn't provide any checkdowns and built into his system. It was, and he didn't even at Washington. I went back because I was curious about that this offseason. I was like, how much different was the Washington Huskies? And there wasn't a lot of there was a lot of similarity, and Penix didn't have a lot of checkdowns. But you also have the variable of, Michael, Odunze, is lined up against a 19-year-old freshman. Yeah, he's going to beat that guy on a one-on-one go ball, so I'm just going to throw it there. That's not happening in the NFL. Sorry, it's just not. Yeah. And so for me, when I look at Sam, that's the thing I want to see. I want to see the completion number get up to 67, 68. That's where I want to see him. He's at 66. I do want to see the attempts come down, though, and I think that'll help that. Like, he threw 545 passes. I'd like to see him maybe down 70 to 100 passes this year because we can run the ball. Sam needs a run game. And, that's, for me, the big thing with Sam Darnold is don't try and squeeze every ounce out of a play. Get to the check down to live. And he's even mentioned that, like, I need to get to my check down sooner. If it's not there, get to it. And so that's where I think the biggest growth for Sam is, because last year he was sacked 48 times.
Yeah, and we've seen a huge shift in the NFL and how they view that too. More like Bill Parcells now, right? That some chances were taken on quarterbacks at the top of the draft that only had one good year starting. Zach Wilson, obviously, Anthony Richardson, two great examples of guys that really only started and had one good year, and they weren't ready. They weren't ready to be drafted that high and played right away. I think Brock Purdy is the best example of a guy that, like, he played a lot of football. He was overlooked because he didn't have those traits that stand out in Indianapolis at the combine, but he had 48 starts, I think it was, in college, played at a high level, played in bowl games, and just played a lot of football. That's why I never bought that Arch Manning was going to come out next year. And so I don't even consider him when I'm looking at what the draft might look like next year. Speaking of him, did you see any of the game today?
No, I didn't.
So a lot of people might look, I don't know what let me see what the box score looks like. They might look at the results of the game today and say, oh, okay, so Arch bounced back. He bounced back. He looked good today. Let's see what his, where are those numbers? Okay. Yeah, they beat San Jose State 38-7. Arch Manning goes 19 for 30, 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. He also ran for a touchdown. But there were a lot of questions last week about his arm slot, his throwing motion, and all the sidearm stuff that he was doing. And there was some speculation that he looks like he might be hurt and he might have a shoulder injury. Today, there was he tried to throw a dig route out of the shadow of his own goal line. Guy was wide open, 20 yards down the field, threw it 5 feet behind him. And they show a close-up of him in the pocket as he's getting rid of the ball. And you can clearly see him. It's not subtle. I don't even know if the word wince appropriately described what I saw. It hurt him to throw that football. They showed 2 different angles, and it was clear a second before he released it, like right when he's in to the most impactful part of the motion, it's not comfortable for him right now. Now they obviously must feel like he's not going to do any more damage to it. It's something he can play through, but he's not himself right now. And I was shocked to see that. It's one thing after a guy throws a ball and he might kind of do this, you see that all the time. Like, it's like pitchers. I mean, they put a lot of reps on that arm, but he's clearly not right.
No, he's not. And what I think it probably is, and this is going to sound, again, I'm not a doctor, but I've thrown enough footballs. I've struggled with my own set of injuries. One thing I never was aware of until I got really into my mechanics and themselves, because I had a very over-the-top delivery coming, over the top like this. Like it was like flip the shoulder pad up to your ear of your helmet kind of a thing. What I never realized was how much your armpit and lat muscle in there affect your throw. And when it tightens up and locks up, there is a nerve or two nerves that run from the top of your shoulder up here that kind of wrap themselves around your arm as they go down. And when your lat locks up and you're an over the top thrower and you go for that extension, you will actually pinch the nerves, because you'll also, what they do is call overpronate, which is where and Dan, you probably know this from when you played, turn your thumb down and put it in the pocket across your other side of your hip.
Yep.
It overpronates and stretches this nerve, and the nerve will lock up in your forearm and it'll lock up here in your trap. And that's where you see that wincing you're talking about. And so until I realized that, and I've had to, work with my quarterbacks on, this is why we don't go over the top. The rule of thumb for my guys is that elbow cannot drop below your armpit, and it does not go higher than your collarbone. Unless, and for what I mean by that is, there may be moments where it has to for one particular throw, but it can't be the consistent. The undeniable is that elbow kind of stays in this area, and that's how we can drive it out to extension.
This is
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I have this interesting list of that rule of 7 thing that we were kind of talking about, of quarterbacks that have been successful and quarterbacks that haven't.
Cool.
So QBs that have historically met the rule of 7 and been very successful: Peyton Manning, 4-year starter at Tennessee, met all the thresholds, checked all the boxes. Phillip Rivers checked all the boxes. Matt Ryan checked all the boxes. Carson Palmer checked all the boxes. Eli Manning checked all the boxes.
And Eli played for Parcells, obviously. And so this is why when people talk about like that family is a huge influence, obviously, on Arch, and they aren't looking to get to the NFL quickly. No. They're looking to do it right.
Andrew Luck was another one. Deshaun Watson, as much as he was another 3-year starter. So summary, QBs who fully or almost fully met Parcells' rules and became...
Is Russ on that list?
Russ was another one on that list.
Yeah.
Now, if we flip it and we go to quarterbacks that were drafted high that didn't meet the rule, Mark Sanchez, only 1-year starter at USC, didn't hit the 30 mark in basically nothing, bust to his relative draft spot, right? We're talking about the number 5 overall pick. Mitchell Trubisky, another one. Dwayne Haskins, another one. Rest in peace.
Good one.
Paxton Lynch is another one.
How about Ponder?
Christian Ponder's the next one on here.
Yeah.
Senior, but 2-to-1 interception ratio didn't get met. 60% completion, below 60% in multiple years. Won just 23 games. Never developed any more than a starter.
I'm going to guess Locker probably hit those. He did. But he just didn't make it.
Didn't make it.
But
Jamarcus Russell
would have drafted.
Yeah, Jamarcus Russell is another one. Johnny Manziel is another one. Vince Young is another one. So common patterns. Left school early, had limited starting experience, less than 30 starts, didn't show consistent accuracy or ball security, lacked the maturity Parcells emphasized with graduation and leadership track record.
Plays right into why I think Cam Ward's going to be pretty good as a rookie this year.
I agree.
4 years of starting, moved up in levels of competition each year. Faced tougher and tougher, and got better as he did so. I think he's going to be pretty damn good. I've got this on the screen. I just wanted to refer to it because I think it's funny, and now I'm really, really hungry. He says Seahawks defense going to eat up crippled Niners offense like a Taco Time crisp bean burrito, to which, if I scroll down just a little bit, James Redding says, I like taco burgers at Taco Time, to which I would say the taco burger is one of my great fast food frustrations in my entire life. One of the most underrated fast food items that they took away for 10 years. I think they recently brought it back. I don't know if there's on limited time or not. There's no Taco Times in this part of the country, but man, that was a good item. I will say this too, before we get off this subject. The whole rotational throwing thing kind of pisses me off in a way. And this is why, because throughout my high school football career, I mostly played quarterback. It was just something I wanted to be a quarterback. If I was smart, I would have stuck to running back, and then I might have been able to even play some small college. I thought about going to Central instead of WSU and giving that a shot. But I was taught all the wrong ways, like the Aaron Rodgers way. Like even I got to tell you about our offense sometime off camera here and what they had us do as far as our drop back. It's just the dumbest thing. I knew it was dumb at the time, and I didn't even know as much about football as I do now, obviously. But it was all, carry, way up high, over the top, turn your thumb down, all that, to which didn't work for me. I always thought that I was never going to be a good quarterback because I just didn't have a very good arm. I could not throw the ball more than like 20, 25 yards downfield. I was a good running quarterback. We played a lot of outside veer. And so it worked for me in that sense. I was pretty accurate and I could throw on the run. And then we go to college and I start playing intramural football. And my best friend in college was the WSU quarterback, ended up being a first-round pick in the NFL. And he threw, like he had a baseball background. He threw a football like a baseball, down low. He's kind of whipping it, rotational. So I start like copying that. And I go light up intramurals for a couple of years. All of a sudden, I can throw the football way farther down the field. It's more accurate. I'm more in touch with it. I was so pissed that I got such shitty coaching when I was in high school. But, what are you going to do?
The thing that's about the whole evolution of the quarterback position and throwing is it's really interesting because you'll get some people, Dan, that are very much the linear type, right? Like to what you were coached. Like it's got to be this way, push off the back foot. But so on and so forth, over the top, ball up next to your ear. And then you'll get guys that are so on the rotational side where it's like you can't have any linear motion whatsoever. Like it's all rotational. Your back foot stays planted in back behind you. It doesn't come forward or anything. Really and truly, it's a mix. It's a hybrid. There has to be a little bit of linear motion in your lower body to create the rotational force that you want as a rotational thrower. And there's a really interesting video. I suggest everyone goes and watches it. And it's a NFL Films production. It's on YouTube. It's like 20 minutes long. And it's called The Evolution of the Perfect Pass. And it has Jason Garrett. And he goes around and he talks to some of the best pure throwers of the football. Aaron Rodgers being one. He talks to like Troy Aikman threw a beautiful football. So did Drew Brees. He talks about all these guys. And they all kind of talk about the throwing motion and what are the non-negotiables. And then he gets Tom House on there. And Tom House is kind of the throwing guy.
Came from a baseball background.
And so it was really interesting because Tom House,
former Mariner,
says, hey, there you go. And he says the most efficient thrower or pitcher in MLB history was Greg Maddux. Like there was no wasted movement. Everything was on point. And he goes, the most efficient two quarterbacks at throwing a football are hybrids. You've got Mahomes, who's more rotational. He's a rotational thrower. You got the linear guys who are like your Kirk Cousins. And he goes, the guys that can mesh the two usually are the most efficient and actually best pure throwers of a football. Aaron Rodgers kind of being one of them. But he goes, the two best hybrids are Drew Brees and Tom Brady. And he goes, you can watch Tom Brady from when he showed up in New England to when he finished in Tampa Bay and all the changes through his throwing motion and how he became more rotational, still kept some of the linear, but found a way to maximize the best of both worlds. And Drew Brees was the exact same efficiency level as Greg Maddux throwing a ball.
It just seems
like
more
the
natural,
metrics,
more comfortable. It's healthier. I think they're discovering that even in baseball. Like pitchers don't come over the top anymore. They're throwing from a lower arm angle now too, and it allows them to get more movement on the ball. And it's really, really interesting stuff. I wrote that down. I am going to find that documentary. That sounds pretty cool.
I can put it in the chat too.
A lot of talk in the chat about Marino. You talk about and I do remember seeing this because would you consider Elway was kind of over the top, right? Whereas Marino
yes and no. It's really weird. It's
hybrid.
If you watch, Elway is a hybrid.
Because they were playing each other one time, and in the pregame, I thought this was brilliant. It's stuck with me ever since. Obviously, they showed a split screen of Elway and Marino going through warmups and their different throwing motions, and how Elway was higher and Marino was lower. And they made the point that they both had substantial baseball background. Obviously, Elway more than Marino because he played for the Yankee farm system for a little bit. And that Elway was an outfielder and Marino was an infielder, and their football throwing motions kind of mirrored that Elway threw the football like an outfielder, a little more over the top, and Marino more like an infielder.
It's so interesting because the guys that I think had the hardest transition, like when I'm coaching young quarterbacks, are guys that pitch. They have the hardest transition. The easiest transition is shortstop.
Okay.
And the reason for that is a shortstop, if you think of a lot of the throws they make to first, they're having to kind of fire their hip through because they're off balance and they're kind of just coming across because it's picking that ball up as it's on the ground and then firing it in one motion. And you can't set up and push and be linear. Whereas a pitcher, you're coming off a mound and down towards the target. And that's where those two things are different. I actually just threw the link into the chat if anyone's interested.
Yeah, if anyone wants to check that out. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. It's fun. I'm watching Mateer take him down, less than 2 minutes left in the first half, and my goodness, he's got a gun.
He does.
Jen is predicting a Spoon pick six tomorrow. That would be only his second interception as a pro. I made the bold prediction on your show last week that he's going to get 5 picks this year, and that would mean that his first 2 interceptions in the NFL were pick sixes. And there goes Mateer running up the middle, doing what he does best, taking on like 6 dudes. They can't bring him down.
He's throwing so well on time. I love seeing it.
Yeah, he really is. I thought it was pretty genius that and we knew it because they hired Ben Arbuckle first before the transfer portal opened up. And it's like, well, he's going to go with him. So just that continuity, he goes to obviously goes to the SEC. That's a step up in competition. There's no question about that. But to be able to have that continuity and have his play caller and his coordinator with him is pretty spectacular. My only concern for the Sooners would be Arbuckle just never, who they're inside the 5 now, never committed to or was able to effectively scheme a run game. And in the SEC, you're going to have to do that at some point. You can't just go down there and chuck it around the yard. I wanted to ask you this too, staying on the issue, just because I'm fascinated by it, of how to teach quarterbacks how to throw and how you approach your teaching philosophy. It's more like I imagine it being, and correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, kind of like teaching a golf swing. You don't just bring someone in for lessons day one and go, okay, let me show you a golf swing first, and then we'll see if you can do it. Isn't the approach like, let me see you throw it, right? See how they naturally are already, and then what you need to tweak from there, rather than like, let me show you how it's done and we'll build it from scratch.
Yeah, it's very much with what I do with my guys. Is if they're new to my academy and they're new to working with me, it's for the first session, I will coach very minimal things with them. I just want to see them throw and see them how they operate in the group setting that I've got with my other guys that have been with me for a while. And part of it too is they will start to generally mimic when they see their struggle points come out at certain, because what I do, which is different than a lot of other QB coaches or trainers or throwing coaches, is all my drills that I do with guys are all simulating game situations, because I can have you run through a ladder, which you'll see on Instagram. These guys hop through ladders or stand stationary and do all those type of things. But the problem is you're never going to get that. We watch football on a regular basis. However clean is a pocket consistently? It's not. You've got guys mucking around in the pocket. You're out on the move. So how do we make you as comfortable throwing a football when you're completely uncomfortable? And so what I'll do is see how they throw. I'll see kind of what they do. And then we'll start tweaking things. Hey, you're losing some of it because your front arm's swinging outward. And the analogy I always use with my guys, Dan, is, have you ever watched a figure skater? And they all look at me funny, like, why would I watch figure skating? But it's like, if you see a figure skater spin on the ice, the tighter they keep their limbs to themselves, the faster they spin. The wider they get, the slower they spin. And so what I'll tell my guys is, when you're throwing, you let that front arm get really lazy and start swinging open. Well, now your right arm, in retrospect, will do the same thing. And now you've got this really wide delivery and you lose all your power. You need to stay compact, like you're in an alleyway, and try and throw right down it. And that's where you see guys struggle with that because they've never been taught that. And that's where, for me, it's all about fine-tuning things. It's never really I completely take someone down to zero and build them back up. It's we start at the bottom, we look, but like most of my guys after their first session with me decide they want to keep training. We don't pick up another football in the one-on-one sessions until probably 5 or 6 weeks down the road. We throw with a towel. We throw with, we use a baseball bat where we teach them how to activate their hips, because a lot of what throwing is now is like being a batter in a batter's box. You got to get your hips through before the bat comes through. You don't let the bat go first and then your hips fall second.
Mateer just ran it in from 5 yards out.
Yep.
14-0 lead before the half. What a great drive. And man, that if they win this game, the Mateer buzz is really going to start.
Oh, it's going to blow up.
Loud. Meanwhile, ASU, as K-Jab is pointing out here, is getting run by Mississippi State at the moment, 12th ranked ASU. Peter Go Hawks, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it. Sam's at 100% completion rate with the Hawks so far this year. This is true. His next incompletion will be his first. It's a new era for this team. We're coming out the gate hot. Go Hawks. I love it. Kickup says Mateer sucks. Don't see it, sadly. I'm going to just assume that Kickup is a Husky fan. Mateer is anything. But Suck, he is running it up and down the field right now against Michigan, and I think you're going to see him. He's going to be a first-round quarterback at the end of all this.
I will say this. Dan, I really wish Mateer had stayed one more year at Wazoo, because I would have loved to see the Apple Cup this year. No, but this is why I'm saying. The reason I would have loved for him to stay one more year is to see an Apple Cup with him versus against Damon. Because Damon is going to be a special quarterback, I think, in the college football.
He's a lot of fun. Oh, this would piss me off so much. And I am worried about it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we all know that the plan for 2026 is the Rams are going to use those 2 first-round picks, and they're going to go. I think they're probably good. I mean, well, I was going to say they'll probably go and get quarterback 1. Like, they'll give whatever it takes to move up and get him. It's not necessarily the case. Probably McVay will pick his guy. And it might not necessarily be the consensus quarterback 1 in this class, but he'll identify his guy, and then Les Snead will just go make it happen. If it's John Mateer, no.
And Kickup, I'm a UW fan too, and I can appreciate good quarterback play, and Mateer is a good quarterback.
You gave
it kills me.
Kick out.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Bill Anderson says seeing Michigan lose is almost as good as Dallas losing. What do you expect to see from Pete and the Raiders tomorrow in New England?
I think this Raiders team is going to be very similar to that 2010 Seahawks team, where they're going to have high energy. They're going to be
they're not going to win the AFC West at 7-9.
No, they're not. But I see that trajectory for this team where Pete's trying, like, they'll be way more competitive. I don't see the Raiders getting blown out in a bunch of games. They'll be competitive, but I don't know if they have the players there yet to close games.
Yeah. This has been fun. Like, I think we'll just whenever available, sometimes things will come up on Saturday, or sometimes it's just Saturdays are a great time to take a little bit of a break after a week of doing heavy content during the season, and watch a college game or two and get ready for Sunday. But if there's nothing going on, I kind of like these Saturday night hangs and just kind of letting the conversation flow and sort of wrapping up the week and getting ready for the next day. What are your plans for the game tomorrow? Where and how are you going to watch it?
I will be watching it on delay, unfortunately, because I will be coaching.
Okay.
It's our first game, so I will be coaching at the time it kicks off at 2:15. So I'll watch the first bit.
Are you the type that you'll check your phone, or will you be like, don't tell me anything?
Because of what I do now, I will be checking my phone and seeing things like that, and then I will come back and watch the whole game through. I'll skip through the commercials and everything, but I've already got it set. And then at 7:45 tomorrow night will be me and Michael Thompson doing the live post-game show. So that way I can figure out what Mike said and everything like that and have some good responses. I like what Kickup said, though. What are you guys eating for a 10 a.m. slate tomorrow? I'm going wings. And 10 a.m. for me, if I'm watching a Seahawks game at 10 a.m., I mentioned this on the 12 Talk pod with Mitch and Josh. For me, it is my wife does tater tots with poached eggs and smoked salmon with hollandaise on it. That's my Seahawk 10 a.m. breakfast. It is quite delicious.
Well, I don't get 10 a.m. games. At least
I know,
not
sadly, anymore.
So next week when they're in Pittsburgh, it's still going to be 1 o'clock for me, and tomorrow's going to be 4 o'clock. So I'll be eating dinner before the Seahawks game. Yeah, I'll probably just I don't know. I discovered some new varieties of SpaghettiOs. I might just throw down a can of SpaghettiOs. They do a I'm not joking about this. I tried it last night. They do a Frank's Red Hot SpaghettiOs now.
Ooh.
Dude, it's bomb. Now, if they ever do that with the meatballs, the mystery meatballs in them, that just might be my daily dinner.
I got to give Paulie credit here in the chat. I'm jealous of Paulie right now.
Now that's how you do it.
Yeah, that's how you do it. Well done, Paulie. Well done.
Smoking a brisket, low and slow tonight for tomorrow. SL Hazard. Oh yeah, everybody jump in here. How and where are you watching the game tomorrow? SL Hazard. Invited all my friends to my place. We all have to witness the total beatdown of the Niners together. Like, this is the way it's done, right? If you're not going to the game, like, and I know this because for years I managed sports bars. Like, the sports bar industry is kind of dying. You'll get a spot here and there that does really well. But even at, I managed Aussies in Lower Queen Anne for years, and it just, we would only get the locals, just kind of the people that live in the neighborhood, maybe 30 or 40 people on a Seahawks game day, just because everyone has their own 70-inch plus 4K TV now. You can eat your own food. You can ignore the commercials. You don't have to deal with traffic. And the thing about going to games now is, like, I'm a lifetime Seahawk season ticket holder, and it's a couple grand just to renew the tickets every year, but it's $100 to $200 to go to a game too. When you talk about parking or Uber, you want to eat, have a couple of beers, and it's a commitment too. It's the whole day. Like, by the time you get back, you're exhausted. It's one of the reasons I'm actually really excited this year that I'll be doing it all on television. May catch a couple of games, may fly up for a couple of games, and depending on where we end up in our next stop, may hit a couple road games. But to be able to just watch it, have the benefit of all the commentary and everything, and then to be able to react immediately to it as well. Which, by the way, just want to let everybody know that keep an eye on the Substack. This will probably be a Monday or Tuesday thing, but I've gotten enough questions lately about, like, how training camp went and how the whole thing went with, pursuing credentials and what was the answer and why did I make the decision to not pursue them any longer. I'm going to write about that, and I'll post that article Monday or Tuesday. It'll be kind of fun to do that. So keep an eye out for that. And that Substack is free, and it will remain free. I know I've said week 2. I may extend it even beyond that because I haven't really posted anything in the last week and a half. And so you'll probably just keep that free for a little while before I turn on subscriptions, but I'll be writing about that soon. Let's talk about the rest of the NFC West before we go. Kick Up kind of reminded me of this. It'd be a perfect Sunday if they lose and the Cardinals somehow lose. Cardinals aren't losing to the Saints. Let me tell you that right now.
Yeah.
I think the way this first weekend is going to go is 3 teams are going to be 1-0 and 1 team's going to be 0-1. Obviously, someone's going to be 0-1 coming out of Lumen Field tomorrow, but I don't think there's any way that the Cardinals lose to the Saints week 1. And I don't think there's any way the Rams lose to the Texans with that offensive line that they're rolling out there tomorrow.
I think the Texans-Rams game, I agree with you on the Cardinals-Saints. The Texans-Ram game is a little bit more interesting to me because if Matthew Stafford can't finish that game, that could cause the Rams some problems, where if CJ Stroud can get enough protection with Jaden Higgins and Nico Collins down there, I think they can cause some problems. So it could be the Stafford thing hangs so low and deep over that Rams team right now.
I just don't see how that Texans offense is going to function. I mean, we'll see. It's new OC. We don't really know exactly what that's going to look like, but that young, dynamic Rams defensive line going up against that rebuilt, again, I don't know what they were thinking there in Houston. shipping Tunsil out and doing what they did. I mean, Laken Tomlinson's their starting left guard. Need I say more?
True point, Dan.
Right? Ariante Ursary, the rookie starting at left guard or left tackle. I like his upside, but I don't know if he's ready to go against Jared Verse necessarily week one. And with Tomlinson next to him, that's a tough pull for them to try and get going. All right, let's wrap this up so we can get enjoy. Like, I know I'm going to watch the second half of this Oklahoma Michigan game, and then I'll be ready for the 10:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff of WSU going up against San Diego State tonight. So I'll be up late. Oh my goodness. Let me just I will address this. The Go M's JetBlue says the Mariners actually have a lead in the seventh inning. I texted Michael Thompson earlier today. If any of you were wondering, I told him, like, look, I'm just sorry that the Mariners Forever podcast just never really kind of got going after those first 5 or 6 episodes. It's just I just have too much on my plate and I have to focus on this. And B, like, I just can't. I can't with that Mariners team right now. Like, I'm out. We'll pick it up in the offseason if they make some major changes at the top, or if they win the World Series, then we'll pick it up then. These Mariners, it could be they could still come back and shock us all, but my goodness, that's I just can't watch it. There's too much going on. So
yeah, no, the Mariners definitely have kind of got our hopes up and then dashed them just as quickly.
That is going to do it. Okay. Just want to make sure one thing. Thanks again to Fast Fashion Brewing. Make sure if you're going to the game tomorrow, man, slide in there. I think is what I meant to say. Matt Storm will probably be there. Beard, baseball hat, wears glasses. He'll probably be back there helping out behind the bar. Try some of their beers. Tell him Dan sent you. Tell him you watch Seahawks Forever. Really proud to have them as a sponsor. Thanks to the folks at Sleeper and thanks to the Blue Wire Network. Bryce, remind people again what you're going to be doing after the game tomorrow.
Yeah, so tomorrow, 7:45, live on the Hawks Eye will be the live post-game show with me and Michael Thompson, discussing basically kind of the little bit of what reaction there is to this game and see what occurred, how it shapes up going into Pittsburgh. And that'll lead us into our live Monday show going forward every week, which is called Seahawks Aftermath, which is me and Michael Thompson. Every Monday night, we're going to break down Mike McDonald's press conference, how we all feel 24 hours after every Seahawks game, and see where our heads are at and emotions are at going in. It'll be a little bit more of a raw show, so we really want all the viewers to come in with how they're feeling. So those are the next 2 things coming up on the Hawks Eye.
And I'll be doing the same thing. I mean, we all do after the game, right? Except for the people that are there actually covering the game because they got to go down to the locker room for a bit. But so we'll be, competitors tomorrow. But, there's enough to go around and hopefully everybody will have a chance to check in. I may wait a little bit after the end of the game, depending on how the flow of the game goes. I may want to wait until Mike McDonald has made his comments in the post-game press conference. And then so I can kind of react to that as well. So maybe half an hour after the game ends tomorrow to put some things together and be able to react to it. But thanks for doing this. This is a lot of fun. You guys, next week, Seahawks at Pittsburgh. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever, and that's how I will let you know if we're going to do another one of these next Saturday night. In the meantime, always follow me on Twitter. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Getting really, really close to 11,000 subs. I'd like to get over that mark. Also, get over to Bryce and subscribe to the Hawks Eye because he's closing in on 1,000. That is a huge milestone to hit early on as he grows that channel coming out of the gate. Thanks, Bryce. Really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone for watching and supporting the channel. All the other ways you can do that are all listed and linked down below in the description as well. Until next time, forever and always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.